the senior enlisted leaders of our armed forces about quality of life investments across the Department of Defense. I want to thank all of our witnesses for joining us today for their service and to our country. You all represent the backbone of our military. Enlisted service members make up more than 80% of the total force, and you are the voice of those who serve us every day. You see more morale, discipline, and readiness up close. We value that perspective, and we need it. I commend the services for returning their focus to warfighting and lethality and for moving away from distracted DEI programs that do not strengthen combat effectiveness. Our military exists to fight and to win wars. High standards and discipline matter. I strongly support returning to a culture focused on performance and mission. You know, at the same time, quality of life is a core readiness issue. The Department invests billions of tax dollars in critical warfighting capabilities, and rightly so, but too often, the most basic investments that directly support service members day to day, like housing, dining, facilities, and family support, are treated as secondary. Taking care of the things that take care of our service members is not a distraction from readiness. It is foundational to it. In recent years, the Armed Services Committee, and this subcommittee in particular, has prioritized investments to support service members and their families, including increasing pay, expanding access to child care, improving spouse employment opportunities, and strengthening military health care. We did this because taking care of our people is essential to maintaining a strong and capable military. You know, this hearing is an opportunity to circle back and find out whether those investments have resulted in meaningful improvements and where our gaps still exist. We also want to hear directly from you about the initiatives you are leading to support morale and quality of life across your formations. The goal today is to get honest feedback, identify what needs improvement, and ensure both Congress and the Department are focused on their most important asset, the men and women in uniform. So thank you for all appearing today. I look forward to your testimony. And Ranking Member and Senator Warren, your statement, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that we're taking time to dig into important quality of life issues for our enlisted troops. You know, enlisted members make up over 80% of our active duty forces. They fill critical jobs across the services, from intelligence and cyber specialists to engineers and infantrymen, all crucial to upholding our national security. But too often, these patriotic men and women have to deal with quality of life issues that make it harder for them to effectively do their jobs. One big area of concern is the quality of our barracks. We require service members who enlist to live in barracks during basic training and initial job training. The very minimum we owe them is housing that is safe. Instead, we've seen health and safety problems for decades. A 2023 report by the Government Accountability Office was another wake-up call on this issue. The GAO found mold-covered walls, sewage pipes that were cracking and overflowing, and rooms heating up to over 90 degrees because the air conditioning units were broken. Several years later, we continue to hear horror stories about living conditions. Navy Secretary John Phelan was so, quote, appalled by barracks he visited in Guam that he initially thought the buildings he was visiting were condemned. Troops and other services also continue to report that it can take months to address maintenance requests at their barracks. Look, we need real solutions, and we need them now, not years from now, now. And one of the proposed solutions is turning responsibility for these barracks over to private companies instead. I am deeply concerned that we have not learned our lessons from years of this committee's investigations into privatized military family housing, which exposed significant failures. Military family housing is still plagued by supports of unsafe living conditions like mold, lead paint, pest infestations, and more. I sent a letter to Secretary Hegseth last year raising concerns about this. DOD's response indicated that it is poised to make exactly the same mistakes in privatizing the enlisted persons' barracks, like granting 50-year leases to companies with questionable accountability and virtually no oversight. We've also seen private companies try to take advantage of military families by forcing them to sign non-disclosure agreements in order to receive compensation for things like damaged property from mold or reimbursement for other financial burdens that they face due to terrible living conditions. DOD and Congress need to act so that any companies responsible for privatized barracks don't try to muzzle the troops that are living there as well. And bottom line, we just need to invest more in the barracks. Congress actually provided funding to DOD to modernize and repair barracks, but under the Trump administration, DOD has repeatedly diverted this money to support border operations instead. In their notifications to Congress, they haven't bothered to explain why they thought it was appropriate to take money away from rehabilitating barracks, leaving troops in horrible living conditions. I don't think anyone here would want to spend an extra year, an extra month, even an extra day breathing in black mold just because this administration didn't think their health was important. Another quality of life challenge, childcare. Military families need it to be able to do their jobs. But I am deeply concerned that military families continue to face big challenges in getting care for their babies. Getting child care is already hard enough for parents all around this country, and it can be even more difficult for military parents who are dealing with non-traditional hours, changing hours, abrupt relocations, and deployments. At the end of last year, there were over 7,800 children from military families waiting for slots to open up at DOD child care facilities. Someone's going to have to explain to me how our service members are supposed to show up for duty when there's no one to care for their babies. Now, DOD is known for high-quality child care, and I applaud that. It is terrific, but there aren't enough slots. And one of the key problems is that DOD cannot attract and retain child care providers with its decades-old pay scale. So in the FY 2025 National Defense Authorization Act, Congress mandated that DOD update its Child Development Program compensation model by April of 2025. But the Air Force, the Army, and the Navy all blew the deadline, and 10 months later, still aren't done. That's making life harder for the moms and dads in the military to do their jobs. Even as DOD has been hemorrhaging child care staff, the Trump administration has made it even harder to replace and retain those workers. It has slashed DOD's total civilian workforce by 8%. Last year, this subcommittee received testimony about the severe impacts of the civilian hiring freeze, reducing child care staffing and increasing the length of the wait lists. Although DOD has since provided some exceptions to the hiring freeze for child care workers, I continue to hear about the challenges that families are facing getting these slots and the challenges you're facing with hiring. We need to do better by our military families and our civilian child care workers. And I'll mention a third problem, and that is health care. Service members cannot show up and protect us if they are not healthy. But one of the biggest challenges that service members and their families face is making sure they can access the health care that they need. A 2023 Blue Star Family Survey found that 4 in 10 active duty military family respondents had family members who needed specialty care and had to wait more than 2 months for a first appointment. President Trump's and Republicans' cuts to Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act threatened to make it even harder for military families to access these types of care. Military families with special needs or lower incomes rely on Medicaid for supplemental benefits that they can't get through TRICARE. And as hospitals across the country are forced to reduce services or close their doors because of the Medicaid cuts, it could make it even harder for military families to access the care they rely on in the communities surrounding their bases. Every day, patriotic men and women enlist so that they can protect our country. We owe them everything. It should not be too much to provide housing that doesn't have black mold, child care that doesn't have a 7,000-person wait list, and doctor's appointments that aren't months away. These aren't things that would just be nice to have. If we don't address these issues, we put our military readiness, retention, and recruitment at risk. So I look forward to hearing testimony from all of the witnesses today. I thank you for being here. These are questions we must address. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren. To all our witnesses, your written statement will be entered into the record in full. Now we'll have opening statements. We'll start with Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, David Isom.
Thank you, sir. Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, distinguished members of this subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you here today, and thank you for your deep commitment to our warfighters. They are the foundation of our lethality, and it is an incredible honor to represent them as the 6th Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I am grateful for the men and women of the Joint Force who serve our nation with quiet professionalism, courage, and integrity at home and around the globe every day. I am equally thankful for their families whose love and support make their service possible. We are living in extraordinarily complex times with multiple simultaneous challenges around the globe, but I am comforted every day by the fact that our incredible Joint Force stands ready. As our Joint Force works tirelessly to ensure the safety and security of our nation, we must also work tirelessly to ensure that they have our full support and that they have what they need to fight and win when called upon. Today I will talk about the Chairman and my priorities, and I will reinforce Special Operations Truth number 1, and that is that humans are more important than hardware. Because the true strength of our military isn't just in our ships and our tanks or our aircraft, it's the unwavering spirit and the trusted hands of our people, our total Joint Force. The Chairman and I have 3 priorities. First, we must have a Joint Force that is properly armed. We must have the right capabilities and capacity when needed to fight and win. Second, we must have a Joint Force that is globally integrated across all domains with interagency, with industry, and with allies and partners. Third, we must build a Joint Force that is ready. Being ready is about repetitions, tough training, and building muscle memory. This also includes being clear-eyed about the future and being candid with our force and their families. Underpinning these priorities is our most important asset, and that's our people. We recruit America's best, and we must retain this talent by taking care of them and taking care of their families. Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, our people are our strategic advantage. We have the smartest, most capable, and most dedicated Joint Force in history, willing to pay the ultimate price to defend our nation. They're fulfilling their end of the bargain through tough training, long deployments, and ensuring they are ready every day. On their behalf, I'm asking that we uphold our end of the bargain by providing the stable, predictable funding that they need to succeed. Provide the tools and training they need to win, and the quality of life that honors their service and their sacrifice. Thank you again for your steadfast support, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Our next witness is Sergeant Major of the Army, Michael Weimer.
Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, distinguished members of this subcommittee, Senator Reid. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of nearly 1 million soldiers in our formations and the civilians and family members that make up the United States Army, the single most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. For 250 years, the American soldier has been the underwriter of our nation's defense. Our motto, "This will defend," is an unwavering promise we make to the American people. Today, I'm proud to report that the United States Army is growing stronger every day. Our strength begins with our people. On the recruiting front, we have a significant success story. 2025, thanks to the incredible work of the recruiting professionals and the patriotism of America's youth, We have not only met our ambitious goal of 61,000 new soldiers, but we achieved it 4 months ahead of schedule. This success is not a signal to relax. We are committed to sustaining this momentum into the future. I'm proud to say we're also exceeding our retention goals, achieving 110% of last year's target. Americans join the Army to stay in our ranks, to be soldiers. When their focus is diverted from the mission to fight battles against poor living conditions, we risk failing them. However, we are fighting uphill to decrease the facility maintenance backlogs with unpredictable funding and government shutdowns. A deferred maintenance issue doesn't just impact morale, it incurs higher costs later and potentially exposes our warfighters to health and performance threats. A soldier's focus must be on their mission, not on a work order that can't be filled. Taking care of our people is the foundation for a lethal combat-ready force. The lifeblood of that force is tough, realistic training. We've declared war on distractions. We are relentlessly eliminating burdensome administrative requirements to free up our leaders to do what they do best: build lethal teams. Every hour a leader spends on a redundant task is an hour they are not training their soldiers. But tough training is not cheap. We're actively transforming our training to reflect the brutal realities of the modern battlefield, one saturated with drones, relentless electronic warfare, and contested logistics. We must train for the fight we face today, not the one we fought yesterday. Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, our people are the heart of the Army. They are the engine of our combat power. Our commitment to provide them with quality of life they need, the leadership they deserve, and the cutting-edge training required to dominate any adversary. Our soldiers are our credentials. They're the living embodiment of our motto, and they're the reason I can sit before you today with absolute confidence and reaffirm our unbreakable promise: this will defend. To uphold this promise, we need your partnership and your support. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Our next witness is Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, John Perryman IV.
Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. It is an honor to represent the sailors and families, active and reserve, who serve our nation at home and abroad. Your oversight of military quality of life is not separate from readiness, it is foundational to it. Since assuming the role of Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, my focus has been grounded in a simple principle: build competent, confident sailors with the character and fighting spirit our nation depends on. Every sailor owns readiness. Every leader develops people, and every command must speak honestly about performance and act decisively to improve it. Quality of life is the human foundation of that vision, especially for a forward-deployed Navy that spends significant time at sea and away from home. I will briefly highlight 3 priorities. First, sailors and families first. Sailors are our asymmetric advantage, and the stability of their families directly affects readiness, retention, and performance. Barracks, housing, childcare, and healthcare are not benefits at the margins. They are readiness enablers. When access to care is delayed, when housing is unsafe or poorly maintained, or when childcare is unavailable, sailors lose time and focus navigating problems that should never reach the deck plates. Access to medical and mental health care remains one of the most consequential quality of life issues we hear. Readiness depends on healthy people, and family stability depends on dependable care. Continued investment in appointment availability, provider capacity, telehealth, and network adequacy, especially for sailors and families far from military treatment facilities, directly supports operational readiness. The same is true for housing accountability, expanded child care capacity, predictable PCS moves, and enforcing standards in these areas with the same discipline we apply to operational readiness. Second, technical mastery at every level. The Navy exists to fight and win at sea. The mission demands technical mastery, from damage control and maintenance to cyber and information warfare. Mastery is built through deliberate training, meaningful qualification, and leaders who enforce standards while investing in their people. Where feasible, strengthening organic maintenance and repair capability improves readiness, reduces cost, and builds durable expertise within the force. Third, continuous development and talent management. Retention begins with development. Sailors stay when they can see a clear trajectory and when leaders deliberately invest in their growth. A coherent, career-long continuum of enlisted development, anchored in education, relevant training, and transparent advancement pathways produces more competent leaders and a more resilient force. Programs such as the Career Training Continuum, tuition assistance, and the Naval Community College are not benefits. They are readiness investments that strengthen retention and ensure we remain competitive for top talent in a demanding job market. In closing, quality of life improvements are operational enablers. When we remove preventable stressors, we increase readiness, strengthen families, and retain the talent the Navy and the nation require. I appreciate the committee's partnership, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next witness is Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Carlos Ruiz.
Good afternoon, Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, and members of this committee. I am grateful for your continued interest and support. I've come to realize through my time in this position that quality of service is not a problem to be solved or a fight to be won. There's no start or finish. It is an ongoing way of life. Just like proficiency and readiness, like health and wellness, and like professionalism and morality, there's never a day to hang it up and go home. We're never done. And we in this room have inherited that responsibility. It is an honor placed in our privileged hands. For however long or short our time may be, what we do today will impact the Marines of tomorrow and those who serve a decade from now. Your Marines continue to train and win because that's our way of life. We have demonstrated readiness, lethality, proficiency, and commitment around the globe. Over the past year, I have visited recruiters and drill instructors who do the work of finding and making the next generation of Marines. And together, they are the gatekeepers of our values, our standards, and culture. And on the other side of service, career planners and the manpower division ensure that the best of the best have stayed in our formations. And thanks to their hard work, the Marine Corps has, again, achieved record retention rates. Your Marines deployed in every combatant command, and I have visited many of them. No matter their rank or occupational specialty, every Marine was focused, trained, and ready. Marines all tell me the same thing. They love being a Marine, but they need better facilities and resources, not because they want to be pampered, but because they want to be more ready, more focused, and the most prepared for whatever the nation needs next. In my position, I am responsible for the morale and welfare and discipline of Marines, but the authority lies with you. It was an act of Congress that established the Marine Corps in 1775, and it was also an act of Congress that provided the GI Bill in 1944. Then in 1958, Congress reestablished the pride and joy of the United States Marine Corps, the iconic Lance Corporal. And it was you that authorized 14.5% pay raise for our corporals and below in 2025. We have the power to create lasting change. Together, we'll ensure the Marines of tomorrow inherit a force worthy of their service. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Next witness is Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, David Wolfe.
Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, it is an honor to be here. As the 21st Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, I represent more than 665,000 total force airmen, and I thank you for your focus on their well-being. Your help is critical because their quality of life is fundamental to our readiness and our ability to defend the nation. Over the last 50 years, military spending as part of our GDP has been cut in half while our global commitments have grown. At the same time, we face the challenge of an aircraft fleet that has nearly doubled in age over the last 30 years. This has created an imbalance between the demands we place on our force and the resources available to sustain them. Because of this, we've had to make hard choices. But it is also it has also encouraged innovation and enhanced a relentless focus on what matters most, our people. Like any advanced system, people require sustainment. This isn't measured in spare parts or fuel, but in family stability and quality of life. I'm proud to report our Air Force is meeting these challenges head-on and delivering solutions. We met our active duty recruiting goals last year, bringing a ready and talented new generation into our force, and we are on track to meet and even exceed our goals for this year. We're also making progress to counter the challenge of our aging infrastructure. We are executing the largest investment in dormitories in over a decade to ensure our airmen have a safe, clean place to call home. In childcare, with this committee's support, we're making powerful strides by funding 17 new child development centers to directly tackle our wait lists. And while we appreciate the 4% requirement for recapitalization of our facilities, if it doesn't come with the requisite top-line budget increase, we will find challenges in meeting the goal. Over the last few years, the demands for our Air Force to modernize have been clear, with the announcement of platforms like the B-21, F-47, and Sentinel. But the following question remains. If we are going to have a sixth-generation Air Force, are we going to be able to provide a sixth-generation quality of life for our airmen? People and platforms are part of the same readiness equation. When one side of that equation is weak, the entire system fails. We cannot allow that to happen. We must ensure our airmen have the training, resources, and quality of life to fight today while ensuring our force is modernizing to deter those who challenge our way of life. It's not either readiness or modernization. It's both. We are committed to getting this right, and we are proving it with action. We see this committee as an essential partner in that effort. I look forward to your questions and to working together to ensure our airmen have everything they need to fly, fight, and win. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next witness is Chief Master Sergeant of the Space Force, John Bentivegna.
Chairman Tuberville, Ranking Member Warren, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for your continued support of our guardians and their families. I am deeply grateful for the recent provisions Congress has provided, including the adjustments to basic military pay, basic allowance for housing, and basic allowance for substance. While the recent NDAA changes represent your powerful commitment, we must continue to ensure compensation remains responsive to the real-world market conditions our guardians encounter. Beyond direct compensation, we know the overall well-being of our guardians and their families are paramount to readiness. Access to child care and food security, for example, are essential to quality of life. That is why we are actively addressing these needs through innovations like the program at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado, which provides 150 off-base child care spaces, offering our guardians greater flexibility. Additionally, the NDAA pilot program to help improve food security is now authorized across all military departments, giving us broader options to provide enhanced food quality and accessibility. To continue these positive trends, both quality of life and quality of service challenges must remain to be our combined focus. We must continue to invest in flexible solutions to improve quality of life, like strengthening licensing portability for spouses and expanding modern telehealth services and access for military members and our families. Both can provide continuity and enhance readiness. And our commitment to readiness is more critical now than ever as we face an ever-evolving global security environment. The space domain is growing increasingly contested. China's quickly expanding space capabilities and Russia's continued development of anti-satellite systems present serious threats to our nation's interests and our ability to defend them in, from, and to space. In response to this, 2025 was a year of significant evolution for the Space Force. We made a historic transition with the establishment of Combat Forces Command, enhancing our ability to field integrated combat units. Our operational tempo reached new heights, with Space Launch Delta 45 executing 109 launches in a single year, representing a 640% increase from the 17 launches in 2019. Even with this progress, to confront the threats of today and tomorrow, doubling the size of the United States Space Force is a national security necessity. While achieving a force of just over 10,000 uniformed Guardians in 2025 was a landmark milestone, it is insufficient for the missions we have been assigned. To effectively fulfill our national mandate, we must increase our infrastructure and double our size. This critical expansion is not only necessary, but entirely achievable. A mere 5 months into fiscal year 2026, we have already exceeded our annual recruiting goal, achieving 125% of our target for those who have shipped to basic military training or entered our delayed entry program. To support our growth, we must also elevate our quality of service by modernizing and expanding our facilities. Our missions are rapidly evolving, but much of our infrastructure is rooted in the past. It cannot keep up with the demands of a larger, more advanced force to train for and execute in a contested and complex joint multi-domain environment. In closing, let me leave you with this message. To ensure space superiority, the Space Force must double in size. To accomplish this, we need continued competitive and responsive compensation for service families who can expect consistent quality of life and elevated quality of service experiences. I look forward to continuing our meaningful collaboration, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank all of you very much. We'll have senators going in and out because of vote, but we want to get as many questions out as we possibly can. And at the end, I'm going to give you an opportunity. If we didn't hit something that you want to talk about, we'll have an opening segment at the end. I'll start out the questioning, and we'll start with Master Sergeant Bentivegna. We'll start down on this end. And just very shortly, you know, we've kind of refocused our warfighting training, standards, merit-based leadership on recruiting. From your perspective as senior enlisted voice of your service, how are these changes being received? And what impact are you seeing on morale, purpose, and day-to-day quality of service this short period of time?
Thank you, Senator. So recruitment for the Space Force has been phenomenal, like I said in my opening statement. We have more individuals who want to commission and or enlist into the Space Force that we can take in right now. So which is why, you know, doubling its size is something I think that is absolutely achievable. But I think as a mission-focused service, as small as we are, the Guardians absolutely appreciate the fact that we are laser-focused on the threat and the need to provide space superiority for the lethality of the joint force. So day-to-day, the leadership at the most tactical level understand that meritocracy, focusing on the mission, and the lethality of the force is where we need to focus on and what we're putting emphasis on day-to-day. And I think morale is high because of it. That's the feedback I receive from my Guardians every time I'm out in the field.
Master Sergeant Wolfe.
Thank you, Senator. As we focus on readiness as the #1 priority for your United States Air Force, what we see is as we give people the resources that they need to accomplish the mission, they immediately respond. In places where we fall short, that's where we end up having difficulties in accomplishing what it is that we're set out to do. Our people, our morale is high. We're focusing on standards every day, trying to raise the bar and make sure that our folks understand exactly what's expected of them. And when they understand that, they respond.
Thank you. Sergeant Major.
Senator, yes, the profession in this service is warfighting, and that's what they do very well, Senator. And I would add to, when a young Marine sees effort, they see an investment. They may not see a brand new barracks being built in their camp, but maybe they see a barracks that is refurbished. Because for most of our Marines, they don't go to an office. They pivot from their barracks room onto the field to do on dangerous things, dangerous training exercises. So to have and to see barracks being refurbished, and that's almost 8,000 Marines that we were able to help because we were able to refurbish 23 buildings, sir. It just does wonders for readiness and definitely retention.
Chief Petty Officer.
Senator, sailors are happiest when they're on deployment doing the mission. And to something the Sergeant Major of the Army said, they're least happy when I've got them bogged down in administrivia and things don't add to their ability to conduct warfare. And the flip side, and the other thing that detracts from that is the fact that their facilities, barracks, housing are a distraction. And so I think continued investment in those areas will improve morale when we're at home, but I've seen nothing but extraordinarily high morale when we're out on deployment executing the mission.
Sergeant Major.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that question. Morale from the street to deployment is high when our soldiers are filled with purpose. That's what I'm seeing. Is it always at the highest point it can be? Of course not, and we know that because there are barracks issues that we're trying to tackle. We're not perfect, we're striving for excellence. But overall morale, to your question right now, is they feel purpose from the moment they go to boot camp to they arrive at their first duty station.
Chief, you have a comment?
Recruiting and retention is good. Morale is high. I travel with the chairman very frequently. Been in the job for about 8 months, and everywhere I go, I talk to all of our folks, and they are ready. Our joint force is ready to defend our nation if called upon.
Thank you. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. So we've got hundreds of thousands of our troops living in barracks all around the world. And in fact, DoD requires enlisted service members to live in barracks during basic training and initial job training. Required, not optional. But DoD and the services have failed to address health and safety risks in unaccompanied housing, not just for a few years now, it has been for decades. A 2023 GAO report, reaching back, uncovered terrible conditions, mold-covered ceilings and walls, sewage overflows, bed bugs, rodents, cockroaches. These are problems our troops shouldn't have to live with even for a day. But barracks managers report that it takes, quote, at least several months to fix these problems. So here we are a few years later, and these issues have not gone away. In a 2025 survey, soldiers reported mold, pests, and outdated and poorly maintained barracks. The survey also found it is still the case that, quote, maintenance requests often take weeks or months to address, leading to a frustration among soldiers. Army barracks got a rating of 68 out of 100. For anyone who's keeping score, that gives them a D+. Now, I heard each of you talk about readiness, so let me just ask you, Sergeant Major Weimer, you're the senior enlisted leader for the Army. Does it undermine troop morale and readiness if soldiers report black mold on their ceilings and walls and they can't get anybody to fix it for months on end?
Ranking Member, thank you. And when work orders do not get addressed in appropriate time, it does affect morale.
Yeah. And I assume the same is true for rodents, the same is true for sewage overflows. You know, look, we need solutions and we need them quickly, but we also need the right solutions. And this is what's got me really worried. I'm concerned that the services are increasingly looking to privatize the barracks. And we have seen this movie and lived through it already. We've seen what private companies have done with family housing. Poor conditions like black mold, pest infestations, and broken HVAC units. And even when companies offer compensation because they have damaged property or they've created financial burdens because someone had to move their family out, had to stay in a motel for weeks on end, they force military families to sign non-disclosure agreements. Think about that. You do them wrong, right? Treat them badly. And then as part of the hostage taking here, before you will repair it, you insist that they sign a non-disclosure agreement so they can't tell anybody else about what went wrong. At least we know when the government operates the barracks, it does not prohibit the troops from coming to Congress with their concerns, going to their leadership with their concerns. I am very concerned that privatization will decrease oversight and accountability, especially if we don't take action here. So I'm just going to ask a question of all of you. Does anyone here believe that it is appropriate for a housing company to prohibit service members from reporting to their commander or to congressional representatives that a company has failed to remove toxic mold in their room for over 10 months? I'll just take a simple yes or no if you think it's okay to do that. I'll start down at this end.
I think service members should always have the access to their commanders to be able to report problems, ma'am.
Okay, and be able to tell Congress. This is part of what oversight is about, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to make sure we're clear. Sergeant Major?
Ranking Member, that chain of command should be well aware of everything that's going on in that situation that you just declared.
Okay, so you are not in favor of these non-disclosure agreements?
I'm in favor of taking care of the family in that situation, Ranking Member.
Wait, are you wobbling here on me on whether or not those non-disclosure agreements should be permitted?
I don't think a family should be put in a box where they cannot have accountability and be taken care of, Ranking Member. I've lived in houses. I don't quite understand how a family gets put in a corner for a non-disclosure. I have to do some more research on that. But that scenario, that 10-month scenario, there should be a chain of command that knows everything that's going on in that before anybody signs
Sergeant
it.
Major, I don't understand where you're trying to parse words here. The question is, as part of getting a repair, should any housing operator that's working for the United States government and getting paid by the United States government be able to say to a service member, I'm only doing the repair after you sign an agreement that you won't tell anybody in your chain of command, or you won't tell any congressional oversight committee about what this place was like?
That right there, Ranking Member, they should not be able to do.
Good, we're clear.
Ranking Member, no.
Okay,
No.
Ranking Member Warren, absolutely not.
good.
No, they should not be forced to do that.
Good. I appreciate this. This may seem like a little side point until it's a family that has been put in a box, as you rightly put it, and they got nowhere to go. Our job is to make sure that our service members are taken care of, and I hear each one of you saying that. But we got to make this work on the ground, and I just start with something as essential as housing. And letting these private housing outfits come in and do a lousy job of keeping the housing operational and then refuse to repair it unless people promise to be silent, agree to be muzzled on it, is just flat wrong. And I enlist your help in beating that out of our operations at the housing level. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We'll keep working on this.
Thank you. Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our senior enlisted leaders for being here today. This is a really important topic for so many of us and making sure that we are caring for our families. And SEAC, thank you for mentioning the first soft truth. I think this is something that every single one of us should live by here in Congress, is that humans are more important than hardware. We need to recognize that and always start with that. So I'm just going to make a comment about the military housing. I was married to an enlisted soldier years ago, and I remember living in housing on Fort Benning and at Camp Rudder down at Eglin, and you name it, being in the South. And I had hoped that since the early 90s, things would have changed. I remember living in Indian Head Terrace on Fort Benning with roaches that would run from one side of the duplex to the other side of the duplex because we could not get the exterminator to come do both at the same time. We lived with mold at Camp Rudder, which is something that it's very hard to get rid of. But just because it was that way doesn't mean it's okay, and it should not still be that way. And we have to do better. We have to do better for our family members. I'm going to start, though, with something that Sergeant Major Weimer and the SEAC and I visited with about the other day. We're going through it right now. Congress is always wrangling with funding bills, our appropriations. We're not getting them out on time, and it's important to recognize that during these shutdowns, and with the continuing resolutions, these funding lapses, our military and our military members really struggle through these difficult times. So we have to do a better job of providing program continuity and stability, particularly for those junior enlisted families. We all know that most of them are living paycheck to paycheck. So SEAC Isom, let's start. And from your vantage point, can you speak to how unreliable congressional budgeting and uncertainty in program continuity affect our service members, their families, and then, of course, the overall readiness of the force?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question, Senator. I'll share with you, I visit the troops a lot. I was just out on the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford visiting troops, and a common theme, and not just about the funding, and it's cross-cutting, and that is that we need to reduce uncertainty and to create stability in the lives of our service members. And so the more that we can do to work together to solve this problem, the better off our service members will be. I will tell you that there is nothing worse than a family and a young service member who is uncertain if they're going to get a paycheck. The impacts are tremendous. And as you think about their morale, you think about retention of that service member over time, that continued uncertainty is certainly a real problem.
Mm-hmm. Outstanding. Thank you for that answer. I appreciate it. And Sergeant Major Weimer, if you could add a little bit onto that as well.
Yeah, Senator, thank you for that. And without trying to repeat too much of what was already said, that uncertainty, I mean, troopers know they'll be paid, but they just don't know when. And that uncertainty is the heavy weight that's going on at home. And if the trooper's deployed, then that's now on the trooper's shoulders also, because their family, you always want to know, is in a good spot back home. And so that has a direct effect on everything that we do. This most recent one probably more than it had in the past because of the length of time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So my daughter with her unit, they were establishing their own food bank at the unit. And unfortunately, a lot of those members, the junior enlisted, were partaking of that food bank.
And Senator, we had some great partners come and help us, the Army Emergency Relief Fund, our nonprofit, and some amazing teammates that came forward, but it doesn't completely stand in the gap.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to jump to childcare just because I'm running out of time, but another key area for improving predictability and readiness is childcare. A number of you have touched upon that, and I am actually partnering with Senator Shaheen on comprehensive NDAA childcare legislation. We've talked a little bit about this in our meetings. We're trying to expand the childcare workforce, improving provider reliability, hiring, and that wait list tracking, because we do have a lot of families that need that child care, whether it's at a DOD facility or whether it is within the community. So I'll start down here. Sergeant Major Ruiz, why don't you maybe address child care concerns within your community?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. When you can't have a peace of mind of where your child is going to go, you're not going to be focused, as you're alluding to. And so for us, while all of this is happening, and I love it, we have to control what we can't control, and that is taking a look at how we move people. And so we found that over 40% of the staff in the CDCs are spouses. And so if we can just be a little bit more smart about transferring folks and directly hiring from one CDC to another, we can reduce the attrition. And another quick point is predictability of where families are going to go. We can let you know ahead of time, 6, 9, maybe even 12 months, that you will go here and then come back, that you can plan better, right? And so there's some things that we're doing on our own, ma'am, while this is developing with you.
That's beautiful, and thank you. That's one thing we are working on, too, is the pre-clearance of child care employees at those military child development centers. So we know our commanders have a lot of great ideas on that. All of our senior enlisted, we're grateful that you're working on that. Thank you. I yield back.
Senator Reed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And let me state what I hope is obvious, that the greatest advantage we have over any adversary in the world is our non-commissioned officer corps. And I benefited from that personally. I was smart enough to listen to my platoon sergeant and my first sergeant and thus avoided a permanent assignment to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, in the correctional facility. Quickly now, because your comments are so important, what's the most substantive complaint you're hearing from the troops? Not just the frequency, but, you know, it's really a critical issue. And I'll start with the Master Chief Isom, please.
Yes, sir. I'll go back to that common theme of uncertainty from families, whether it's childcare, whether it's length of deployments, when are we coming home. It's often the uncertainty about what's next.
Senator, it really does depend on with whom I'm speaking, but a common thread here lately has been access to health care.
Senator, I'll echo what SMA said. The most consistent comment we get in our engagements is access to health care.
Very good.
Senator, the barracks and access to health care.
Senator, I'd echo also the access to health care, the reimbursement rates that are available in communities, the saturation in areas where our folks have a lack of availability for appointments. All those things impact not only the readiness of the military member, but also their family members. And what we've all seen over the length of our careers is a gradual erosion in the availability of that health care for our service members and their families.
Thank you, Steve.
Senator, I would echo what my teammates said, but I would add that I think one of the frustrations that I get out from the field is we spend a lot of time, effort, and money in quality of life space here in this town. And we have a lot of good momentum. I think the challenge is when they hear about us speaking about the things we're trying to help improve quality of life, when you get down to the tactical level, there's a gap, right? Where a program, a project, something that we had great anticipation for, we talked about it, they're not feeling it day to day, not feeling around the kitchen table, they're not feeling it when they call to kind of get an appointment, they're not feeling it when they try to get childcare. So that gap, we just got to do better at all the work we do here to make sure it actually produces the effect that we want it to downrange.
Thank you very much. And gentlemen, I can't say enough about your service. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin by doing a shout out to Chief Master Sergeant Wolfe. Good to see you again, Chief. And I'm looking at your very impressive bio. It's got a lot of duty time in Alaska. So the rumor is that when you're someday when you retire, you're going to go back there. Is that true?
Senator, that's an absolute fact.
Good. That's a great answer. You're one of the many reasons why we have more veterans per capita than any state in the country. You come up, you do all this time in Alaska, then you want to do great things in the military, and then you say, hey, when I'm done, I'm going to go back. So to all the great senior enlisted in this panel, we welcome you to follow the lead of your great Air Force compatriot right here. And come on up to Alaska. We would love to have you. And only when you retire, you guys still have a lot more work to do. Let me ask actually an Alaska question. It's for you, Chief Master Sergeant and Sergeant Major Weimer. I want to thank you as well. And you know, we've had a high suicide rate up in Alaska, very high with our Army and to some degree the Air Force. But you know, Sergeant Major with the Army, it was a really high number over the last couple of years. I think we've kind of gotten our arms around that. But can you two speak to that issue? It's in both of your testimony, not just as it relates to Alaska, but throughout the force. And maybe I'll let all of you jump in. It's a big issue, but you know, in my experience in the military, in the Marines, you know, you give your troops hard tasks and you train them hard and you deploy with them, and you know, when they're focused, sometimes those are the issues on suicide that actually go away. But I'd like to get a sense from all of you on what more we can be doing. We're pretty focused on that here in the Congress, but I think it's really, if anyone's going to get their arms around, it's going to be our senior enlisted in all the services. So, Chief Master Sergeant Wolfe, why don't you start?
Thank you so much for that, Senator. And you're right. This is a problem that doesn't just exist in one state. Doesn't certainly just exist in our country. This is a global issue that happens. When I talk to the Chief Master Sergeant of the Japanese Air Force, they have a concern for suicide problems. So this is a human condition problem. What we've noticed is that in places where we can get the funding and the manpower for the mental health technicians that are embedded in units, whether it's military family life counselors or anyone with some training in this department, when we can embed that care, as the Special Operations Command has proven time and time again that this is a model that works, we can reduce not just the suicide risk, but also the risk for all the other kind of self-destructive behaviors that happen when people are, going through life and having things happen to them, right? Tragedies come, and people have a lot to deal with. So I think if I had a magic wand to wave, I would try to get as much embedded care into our units in all of our services, so that we can have that sensor in there that is a trained professional that can be that kind of outside the chain of command person that can help folks through those times. And really what that ends up doing, we've seen it time and again, is it keeps them out of the mental health clinic, which is should be your emergency room for a mental health problem, and helps them solve and get through those problems ahead of the curve. So embedded care, I think, is great. Access to our mental health, filling our mental health positions is another piece that we could definitely use some help on. Yeah. I think there's some ideas that all of us are working on and talking about. We talk together about these issues frequently. We all have the same concerns. If we could figure out how to have a pipeline to keep these positions filled, maybe even using our military spouses who quite often have these helping profession degrees already to get them in. We may be coming to you for some help in that department in the future as well.
Good. Sergeant Major, you have a view on this real quick?
I'll try to be quick on this one, Senator. First, thank you for the question. This is probably the topic, and I don't want to speak for everybody here, but the topic that I probably bang my head up against the most. Everything's difficult in our portfolios, but this is the one that probably I lose sleep over if there is one portion of the portfolio. I remember those days in Alaska. We surged. Yeah. We surged all resources to get up there. Part of it's caring. We learned that. Part of it's leadership. You're never going to replace that with a program, with money in a special program. But there's some new things we're trying. So we're trying to take the best of breed lessons from an entire army that's from Poland to Korea. We're consolidating those now, and we're giving them all to the department. All the services are doing this now. So like what happened in Alaska, we can learn from it and not just move on because it's better last year. VR goggles, as a small example. I haven't spent a lot of time in the virtual reality world. That's not how I grew up. But they asked me to be a coach in the virtual reality world, and so I did it. And it was one of the most awkward things I'd ever done in my life because of the realism. And soldiers are responding to the training for the VR goggles. Our goal is to get left of having to use all of the in high demand mental health resources we have. And so just in a couple minutes, that's where we are.
Great, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a big issue, and I know this committee's been focused on it in a bipartisan way. And if you gentlemen who really are front lines on all this with the troops have ideas for us, make sure you submit them for the record, because we want to be very forward-leaning and helping what remains a big issue, and your ideas we want to hear from, and we want to try to implement those. So thank you to all of you for your service. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here and for your extraordinary service to our nation over many, many years. I want to follow Senator Sullivan's questions about suicide, highlighting a particular story which has been very troubling to me. On December 9th, 20-year-old Navy seaman Thatcher Rupert, beloved son of Alicia and Kenneth Kelsey from Winstead, Connecticut, tragically took his own life. Before his death, Seaman Rupert was stationed at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma. He was entrusted to the care of the United States military by his family. He had sought urgent mental health care at the base earlier on the very day he took his own life, but the military left him in a room by himself rather than providing him with an evaluation. I've been the recipient of various disclosures and reports that indicate to me that as many as 6 Navy suicides may have occurred at Tinker, within Tinker Air Force Base within the last 18 months. So my concern is twofold. First, is there an issue at Tinker Air Force Base? And second, what concrete changes are being made now to assure that service members in crisis are identified, treated, and protected before they reach a breaking point? Maybe I can ask you, Master Chief Perryman, whether you're aware of the circumstances surrounding Seaman Rupert's death and anything you can tell us about Tinker.
Senator, I am aware of the number of suicides that have happened in Tinker over the last year and a half. After the first, I believe it was 3 or 4, Air Forces sent a team out there to do a check on everybody out there to see if there was some commonality between the suicides. They found no reason to. They didn't find anything systemic, and then we had, unfortunately, several more in which an EpiAid study was conducted by the department and has been completed, and we're waiting for that report. It's my understanding, though, that while they were there, they found no contagion as part of that EpiAid. I think to what we're doing about it, I think Tinker is an interesting place because the mission there is very unique. And I think people think because they don't go to sea that it must be easy. They spend an extraordinary amount of time deployed around the country executing their mission. I think they've had MFLAC counselors embedded there for a year or two. They're on an Air Force base and receive, what I believe and what I've been told is exceptional service from the Air Force mental health people there. I think suicide is a tough problem, and I agree with the Sergeant Major of the Army that embedded mental health people will only get us so far, right? And I think where we have to focus our effort is in engaged leadership and in giving our sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines and Coast Guardsmen the tools necessary to manage life in the military, which I think we're coming to the realization that, we should have probably went there earlier than now. Because I think for a long time, people my age think of mental health as one thing, and the younger generation think of mental health in a totally different way than us. And I think we've been slow to realize that, and we've been slow to institute actual prevention programs that will help us get left to it like the Sergeant Major was talking about.
I respect your response. I understand that you have so far not found a commonality, as you referred to it. When is the report likely to be available?
Senator, I'm not sure, but I'll take that question for the record and get back to you.
As soon as it is available, can you commit to us that it will be made available to us as soon as it's done?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your answers. I want to raise a general concern which was highlighted to me by a visit I had just today from an organization that deals with veterans who are involved in the criminal justice system. Many of them have less than honorable discharges, bad paper discharges. So the concern is, can we do something to help those members of our military before they are discharged with less than honorable? I'm not talking about necessarily bad conduct discharge, but people with mental health and maybe trauma and post-traumatic stress, some of them from the Vietnam era, when the idea of post-traumatic stress or the diagnosis didn't even exist. They come out of the military and with a bad paper discharge, can't find a job, they have no availability of VA health care. You know, they've raised their right hand, and maybe through no fault of their own, but simply because they have mental health issues, they've rubbed people the wrong way and gotten into trouble, whatever. So I think more than just suicide, it would be much more cost-effective to give them the care that they need. And since many of them are non-commissioned officers and or non-commissioned members of our military, and since you as senior non-commissioned officers are probably closer to this problem, and I deeply respect, as Senator Reid said, your service and the importance of non-commissioned officers. It's just an idea that I would like to throw out there, and my time has way expired, so I apologize. But this is an issue that I would like to follow up on and welcome your thoughts about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for our senior enlisted leaders for being here today. I want to focus my time on helping our service members grow their families. It should be good for the military because, you know, you have generation after generation of military service, so we're just growing our future force. Every day, our servicemen and women risk their lives to defend this country, many at the expense of having a family. And I know too many service members struggling with infertility who feel like they have to delay having children to save up to pay for IVF out of pocket, or even worse, who end up choosing to leave the military in order to afford the care. That's why I've been fighting for years to ensure that TRICARE covers assisted reproductive care, including IVF. And we came close last year with a bipartisan solution out of this very committee in both the House and Senate NDAAs. But Speaker Mike Johnson personally took it out in conference. This was done despite President Trump's campaign promise that the government would, and I quote, pay for all costs associated with IVF treatment. The Commander-in-Chief should make good on his promise for military families right now. Our heroes suffer from infertility at roughly twice the rate of the general population. And yet the majority of service members who need IVF and other assisted reproductive services to have children, the out-of-pocket cost can easily exceed $40,000. And TRICARE only provides limited coverage of IVF to our military families, far less than we members of Congress receive. For each witness, in your experience, do you believe service members and the mission would benefit if TRICARE fully covered IVF so troops and their families would not have to choose between continuing their service and building the families they want? And if each one of you could answer that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Good to see you again. I can't speak personally. I'm not certainly not an expert on IVF and its impacts, but as a father of 6, I can certainly appreciate the value of having great children that become great leaders in the future, much like Senator Ernst's daughter. So I appreciate supporting and ensuring that we provide overall the best possible health care that we can for our service members.
Thank you. Sir, Major Weimer.
Senator, great to see you again. I appreciate the pain that some of these families are dealing with the costs. Having known a few of them myself, that is a real issue.
Thank you.
Senator, I agree with my two shipmates at the right. I think anybody who serves their country deserves access to world-class medical care across the entire gamut of anything they could possibly need.
Thank you.
Senator, I agree with my colleagues. It is because it doesn't just apply to somebody who had a physical injury or just can't have the child. If if in the future fight we get into something heavy, it also involves a lot of career planning. So you're about to go into danger, and you want to plan something out, or you have a family history of something, and you want to plan this out. We do what we can with the policy of today, but should this become available in the future, it may be a good option.
I couldn't agree with you more, because I've talked to many service members who want to freeze their reproductive material prior to going into a combat zone, especially after the lessons learned in Afghanistan, where so many troops stepped on landmines and as a result became infertile. Sergeant Major Wolfe.
Thank you for that question, Senator. We estimate there's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 or so airmen in the United States Air Force that would kind of fall into the category that you describe of folks that are seeking this kind of treatment. And like my colleagues, I totally support anything that's going to reverse the erosion of our military health care benefits that we've observed over the years, and this would certainly be a welcome.
Thank you, Sergeant Major.
Senator, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I echo what my teammates said, especially when we talked about, through our years of service, the kind of decline in access to care and what's kind of covered in that care as well, to include reproductive therapy to kind of help military families have children. So definitely is something that, concerned about, that we have to address. When you're serving your nation, we owe you the best care you could possibly get.
Thank you. I think this is also a recruitment and retention issue. This is an issue of basic fairness and honoring the commitment military families make to our country. When it comes to building families that they so desperately want, our service members deserve at least the level of care that members of Congress receive. And so this is why I'm going to continue to fight to pass my IVF for Military Families Act, which would require TRICARE to cover IVF for active duty uniformed service members and their dependents. And I hope that President Trump and my colleagues will work with me to fulfill his promise to help our families and help them achieve their dreams. Thank you.
Senator, if I could, sorry, you said active duty. Would you also be chasing the reserve component?
So that was part of the deal we had to make in NDAA in order to get it passed. I would love it for the reserve components as well. I think that if we're going to call up our troops, I think it should be there for everyone. But sometimes in the sausage making in Congress, you end up having to make some deals. I think we start with the active duty families. I would love the coverage to be for everyone who wears our nation's cloth. Thank you.
Senator Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Master Chief, 3 years ago, the United States Navy had the worst recruitment in the over 50 years of an all-volunteer force in our military. Last year, we had the best recruitment numbers that we've had in 20 years. What changed? What happened?
Senator, I think a couple of things changed. I think we got some new leadership at Recruiting Command that fundamentally changed the way our recruiters approached recruiting, especially Gen Z. We instituted a recruiting operations center that enabled them to more effectively use their time, so they were targeting more viable candidates that would prove more fruitful from the contact. I think, so I think those two things were pretty big. I'm also a huge fan of our advertising campaign, Forged by the Sea. Our data shows us that resonates extraordinarily well with this younger generation. It's not as cool yet as the Marine Corps, but I think
the Marine Corps didn't have a recruitment issue.
No,
I mean,
No, for the record, we've never had.
Okay.
I appreciate the laughter, but the Marine Corps was the steady branch through it all that never wavered. Their recruitment was never an issue. The Navy had a recruitment crisis, and last year had the best recruitment numbers in 20 years. And you're citing recruitment commands and advertising campaigns and
the recruiters themselves, sir.
why weren't we doing that all along?
Well, I think
That seems like common sense. So what really changed? I mean, do you think it was as simple as that for 3 or 4 years during a recruitment crisis, it was just the advertising slogan?
Well, I know, and I think it was the performance of our recruiters, the institution of the.
They just weren't doing a good job. I mean, help me out. I'm
Yeah,
really
well,
trying
I think.
What lessons do we learn from it?
Well, I think they were trapped in a kind of a paradigm that had worked for a long time, and were not as agile as they needed to be given the shifting environments. And so I think, again, through effort and significantly reducing kind of the administrative and distracting things that they had to deal with to go be effective recruiters was one thing. The recruiting operation centers was another. And I think the other thing I think we've learned coming out of this, Senator, is that we used to try to get too cute by landing the number of recruits we needed. And when you do that, you're always going to miss. And so I think one of the things we've learned over the last 3 or 4 years is there's a number somewhere between 40 and 45,000 that we're just going to have to stick to every year and hold there, because that creates a constant demand signal for the recruiting nation out there. So it's a knowable goal. And then it will enable us to ensure we have enough capacity in our accession training pipelines to put through sailors at the pace we need them. Because one of the problems, it's a good problem to have for how successful they've been, is log jammed inside of my accession training pipeline because we had let that capacity atrophy too much because we were bringing in so few people.
I assume that with the really good news about recruitment, that there's really good news related to morale, especially for young enlisted sailors. Do you see the same?
Yes, sir. Our retention remains incredibly good, and we seem to be on a positive and sustainable path.
And what lesson do we learn from that?
I think, one of the things I think, those of us up here have talked about this. If I can get people in the Navy, I can generally retain them, right? And so this is why we've focused on setting a steady number, because that steady diet will help me be more selective in my retention decisions once I'm healthy there.
I love the United States Navy, and I'm a proud veteran of the United States Navy. This is really good news. The recruitment numbers are really good news, and you're a big part of it. I appreciate your leadership. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Banks. Senator Orono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll thank all of you for being here to respond to our questions. This is for the entire panel. As you all know, Secretary Hegseth has called for a review of the effectiveness of women in combat roles. And up front, I'll just say that it is really, I would say this is an attack on women to call for this kind of a review, but there you have it. And so I think that he is laying the groundwork to reverse the policy allowing women to serve in combat armed positions, and also undermines the sacrifice of thousands of female service members who have already met the rigorous gender-neutral standards and have served in combat with distinction. And, all you have to do is look at Senator Duckworth to know that women can very strongly be in these kinds of roles. So I want to ask you, for all of you, do you believe the mere fact of women being in these combat arms units lowers standards? We can start from my left and go down the line.
Senator, thanks for the question. Good to see you again. I've seen no data that supports that there's any lowering of standards or that there's lowering of the readiness of units with those females in those units.
So answer is no.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Senator, great to see you. No, at this time, I'm not seeing anything that leads me to believe there's an issue with meeting the standard or affecting readiness.
Senator, no.
Senator, no.
Senator, from my perspective, I've served with some of the best war fighters that the world has ever known in the United States Air Force. Some of them happen to be men, some of them happen to be women. Absolutely not. I've not seen any erosion.
Senator, from the Space Force perspective, we have not seen any erosion in the readiness based on any of the administration's positions.
Again, down the line, do you agree that every service member, regardless of gender, should be permitted to serve in any role, including in the combat arms, if they meet the established standards? We'll go down the line again. Yes or no?
Yes, Senator, if they meet the standards.
Yes, Senator, it's about standards.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, Senator. And all the specialties on the enlisted side and officer side within the Space Force are all open to men and women.
When you have a secretary calling for this kind of research, it does tend to be, I would say, create a sense of divisiveness. So I'm planning to introduce a bill that codifies the current DoD policy that allows women to serve in combat arms positions as long as they meet the required standards. And that I hope my colleagues on both sides of the aisle will join me. And I must say that especially in a time when recruitment goals are really challenging to meet, except possibly for Air Force and Space Force, I think that we need to make sure that everyone who wants to serve our country, and so men and women and others alike, that includes LGBTQ and others, that they should have the opportunity to do so. So this one is very specific, and I want to ask all of you again. The frequent permanent reallocations place a significant financial and emotional strain on military families. I know you're aware of that. And then to help reduce that burden, I work to include language in the fiscal year 25 NDAA to authorize reimbursement for shipping and storing 2 privately owned vehicles during overseas moves. And it makes a difference. A lot of our military families have more than one vehicle because guess what? Maybe they need both to get to, to work, et cetera. Okay. So the military just pays for one, and that is a huge burden on families to have to find the storage for their second vehicle, meaning they could be thousands of dollars out of pocket if they want to have that second vehicle with them. And my staff has heard from DoD that the services are responsible for making any updates to allow for the reimbursement of 2 vehicles. So I want to ask each of the service people, what steps are you taking to advocate for the important change that would save our service members and their families potentially thousands of dollars? So are you all working to enable the service members to have two vehicles stored?
Senator, it's my understanding we're waiting for a JTR change, which is controlled by the department, and once that changes, then, I know the Navy will work to figure out how to make that a reality for our Navy sailors.
So do you, since you're waiting for somebody else to determine whether you can do that, but I mean, as a sort of a living, just to address some of the real needs of the service members, would you all agree that it would be a good thing to respond to this particular need?
Senator,
Yes, no?
yes, and as
Okay.
the 2 vehicles, the 2 vehicles, ma'am, if I could, we're pushing it and we want that to be available, but the JTR portion, what I would add is that if all the services immediately start allowing for 2 vehicles to go to any location, it will likely break every one of our budgets. So I would just caution.
Yeah, I realize that there's a cost factor here, but I think this is an example of addressing a need that has been brought to our attention, and that there should be an adequate response to that, because I don't think this is a matter of frivolously wanting 2 vehicles, et cetera. And so when it's brought to our attention, it's just an example. And there are other examples of how the quality of life of our service members can be improved. And this is one of them. So thank you for whatever you all can do to make this happen. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Senator Wicker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you and Senator Warren for conducting this hearing. I've been listening from my office on television, and I'm really heartened by the participation by members, and I think we will benefit and are benefiting from your testimony. I don't believe anybody's asked about junior ROTC yet. So let me ask about that, and I guess I'll direct my question first to Major Ruiz. I've been an advocate for high school, junior ROTC in all the branches, and I've been a little frustrated from time to time on the NDAA. We've raised the number of allowed junior ROTC detachments in the past, and that wasn't necessarily followed. So now we've raised the floor. These branches must find other high schools to expand junior ROTC in. I think junior ROTC, we might as well admit it, it's a great recruiting tool for the services. But also it is a citizenship builder. It involves young men and women in the high schools that volunteer to do a harder thing, to adhere to requirements that other students are not willing to do, to go above and beyond and apply themselves. At the same time, they do learn quite a bit about the military, and my hope is that some of them will go on to military service. Sergeant Major Ruiz, you go first. Do you agree with me on the benefits of junior ROTC? And do you agree with think tanks like the Rand Corporation, who've said that this is an absolute plus for America and for American young people?
I do, Senator. It's a great program. It's been around for quite a long time. And then our service members who transition back to the civilian community, they find a home and they have the ability to give back again. So is this ever, give back to our country thing that we have going that we should not let go of? And I'd love to work with you to get it back.
Does anybody else wish to comment about that? I saw some people nodding their heads. Yes.
Senator, I'd love to from Army perspective. I appreciate Rand, but we know from personal experience inside our formations that junior ROTC inspires a call to service. It is a good effort. In the Army, we're going all in on this, but we're doing it in an intentional way to ensure we have quality programs as we expand them, because it is our reputation.
Right, and the point that Senior Sergeant Major Ruiz made about the retired members or National Guard members that are reservists who are back in the community, the federal government pays a good portion of that salary, so the school districts are getting a very experienced instructor for sometimes half price. It's a good investment. Let me, Sergeant Major Weimer, since you volunteered, I'll ask you to comment on this. In terms of the servicemen with spouses and families, what's the quickest thing this committee or this Congress could do to help them on a day-to-day basis?
Ooh, Senator, that's a good one. You're giving me a massive opportunity for myself and my teammates in the Joint Force.
Okay, and your teammates at the table can be thinking of their answers.
Spouse licensure reciprocity is something that you all have helped us with tremendously, but we're still stuck in some states, Senator. And expanding that would be tremendous. The ability for the remote work, we've seen benefits from that. Those would be overnight quick wins for all of us in the spouse.
Is that a state matter? A reciprocity issue?
It is, Senator, and there are quite a few states that are on board and moving out, and then there's some others that we're still working with.
Anybody else want to jump in there? I know it's been a long hearing, but thank you very much for your participation and for your suggestions. Also, if anybody wants to submit answers for the record after you've had a chance to scratch your head, I would appreciate that. And I yield back, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, SEAC Isom, I've got a hypothetical question I want to ask you about. If over half of enlisted service members left the military within just 1 year of joining, would that constitute a crisis?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you found out that the reason for this attrition rate was low wages, what would you try to do?
I would come to you and ask for higher pay.
Okay, and if we gave you the money to do that, what would you do with that money?
We would pay those service members and hopefully increase recruiting and retention, ma'am.
Well, you may remember we started this by noting we have a waiting list of more than 7,800 children who are waiting for their child care slots and not getting them. And the principal reason for that is because we don't have enough people. Do you know what the attrition rate is for people who are hired to be child care workers for our military right now? Don't know. It's 50%. That's why I started with that hypothetical. It's 50%. And when you go ask those people, we've actually interviewed them and done studies. Why did you leave? These are people who are attracted to the work, who like babies, who like little kids, who like working in a military setting, who like the fact that the schedules are different, but it's part of their contribution. Do you know what they tell us is the number one reason they leave?
Low pay.
Low pay. Okay, so last year before last, we got into the NDAA that our military services would have money and that they would upgrade their pay scales by April 2025. We can agree it's now past April 2025, right? Which services have failed to do that? I'm a little disturbed that you don't know any of these numbers. The Army, the Navy, and the Air Force have not yet changed their pay scales, which might be the reason that we have 7,800 children waiting for care. So I appreciate that everyone says they care about child care, they care about quality of life, all of it relates to readiness. You have the tools from Congress. We've already given them to you, and you haven't picked them up and used them. So here's my question for the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. We're going to be back here a year from now. We do this every year. We're doing this on video right now. When I come back to ask these questions a year from now, are we still going to have a waiting list that's 7,800 babies long? Or are we going to have whittled that waiting list down because we're actually hiring enough child care workers to get the job done? Can I hear, please, from the Army?
Senator, our goal is to drop our...
I'm not asking your goal. I'm going to ask, are you going to get it done?
Senator, we're going to move out with a purpose.
All right. Navy?
Senator, I believe the Navy has taken advantage of the increased pay scales that were authorized by Congress to the point where our current staffing is at 87%, which is up from the 60s and roughly FY22. Our unmet need sits at about 1,400 right now. We have significantly increased our my child care fee assistance. And so I do think, to your point, ma'am, we have moved out with the authorities. We are making significant progress in reducing our wait list. Another thing we did inside of helping our child care workers is for anybody who works for us, their first child is free, and then their second child it's reduced further.
Okay, that's great, but that does not reduce your waiting list. Do you think it's okay to have a waiting list of 1,400 kids?
Well, I don't think it's okay, but if I don't...
Have you updated your pay scales
Yes, ma'am.
as you were required to do by April 2025?
Yes, ma'am, our pay scales have
You're
been
telling me
updated.
the information I have that says you have not upgraded them is wrong?
Ma'am, in my prep, I was told we upgraded our pay scales.
Okay, in mine
we're
I was told
operating-
you had not. Let's go back and check that one. And how about the Air Force?
Yes, Senator Warren, same as the Navy. I'm under the information I have is that we have updated our pay scales.
And how long is your waiting list right now?
And right now, we've got about 2,700 with unmet need across the Air Force, and that's absolutely not where we want to be, for sure. We are seeing initial indications that the first child free is having an impact because it's helping us keep people longer. So we are seeing some impact there. We don't have enough time with that policy in place to know for sure. We think we've got about a 7 or 8% bump from that policy all by itself. And absolutely, we are committed to making sure that this number goes down over time and does not creep back up.
Okay.
You have that commitment.
When we say over time, can we just keep in mind that parents can't wait? They don't have a year that they can just set aside while they're waiting around on a 1,400 or 2,700 child wait list. They've got to have childcare now. Our position should be that there are extra slots, so you're there to be able to pick up the slot. So I really want to say, Space Command, Marines, you nailed it. And let's keep it up because that's what we've got to do. We can't say that we are a military that cares about our families if we pretend to provide child care and then we've got a wait list that's got 7,800 babies waiting on it. So I just want to say this is what oversight is about. And I hope when we come back next year, I will be offering congratulations to every one of you because we have no babies waiting for the care they need. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Ernst.
No further questions, but just a couple of comments. There have been a lot of really great topics of discussion today, whether it's the housing issues, the child care issues, in particular as well, the brain health issues that were brought up. And I like to think about it in that way, that it is brain health, not just mental health. And with our troops, you know, we need to think of the brain as an organ. It is an exquisite organ. But just when we need that care, just like any other organ in the body, we need to seek care and encourage our troops to seek that care and get the proper care for that organ. So think of it as brain health. We want to make sure that their organ is healthy. So if we can focus on it like that. And then also just a closing comment, because as someone who served as an engineer and a logistician in the U.S. Army Reserves and the Iowa Army National Guard, we live in an incredible culture of warriors and embracing the warrior ethos. I was always brought up that we're a soldier first, regardless of our MOS. But what I would say, too, is that as we're talking about our warriors, never forget about all of the other spokes of that wheel that makes that infantryman or that warrior successful. So whether it's our administrative assistants, our technicians, our truck drivers, our maintainers, our fuelers, whatever it happens to be, we're all an important part of today's military. So God bless you all. God bless our warriors. But please, as we're talking about the entirety of the force, never forget that every single one of us can be a point of failure. And if we're not all strong, that means those warriors on the front lines will also fail. So let's always remember to recognize every single one of us that serves in uniform. So God bless you all for everything you do. Thank you for a great hearing.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. You ready to re-enlist?
I am.
Senator Rono, you have another question? No. Okay. I just got a couple of questions here real quick. Does anybody want to follow up on the suicide in their purview? You didn't get to talk about. Anybody want to say anything? We had a couple that.
Yeah, Senator, thanks so much. You know, our colleague said, you know, obviously, you know, suicide is a challenge that all the services and the nation really has been facing trying to tackle. You know, in addition to, you know, our ability to hire more healthcare professionals, and I think we all agreed, there's a lot of work on at the tactical level, how do we get leadership involved, but also how do we get just a rank and file involved. You know, from a Space Force perspective, with 6 years old, as we stood up, you know, we had the opportunity to kind of take a look back at what some of the challenges service, you know, brings to it. That's one of the reasons why, at least from a cultural perspective, the Guardian commitment, what it means to be a team member and a team leader at the tactical level, to make sure that there's connection there, which is also one of our core values, to try and help get after some of the isolation and some of the loneliness. And I think, right, in addition to professionals, healthcare system, it is the work at the tactical level and the culture that all of us are trying to create so that members feel connected and they don't necessarily have to get to extremes to the point where it's crisis and we have to rely on the medical community, that they have that connection and camaraderie amongst one another with the culture we're building.
Thank you. Well said. Anybody else? Sergeant Major?
I could just add, sir, it's the 21st century, and just to one little point on data, and for an organization that is about humans, it's about the Marine, we can do so much better with how we develop a young person today. It is different, and so we must bring them up in a different way. We were talking about it. In my day, there was someone smoking a cigarette and running in front of, leading me in a formation. And those days are over, and some may be sad about that. I'm not interested in that anymore. These are our children. These are our grandchildren that have come up to take the helm. And so with the point of data is, imagine that the platoon sergeant knows that someone didn't get sleep in the last 2 days because I've given them something to wear, or a shirt that tells me how dehydrated they are. And so it is the 21st century where we can use all these AI predictive things to help as a tool. It will never replace the human connection with eyeball to eyeball. But the time is here to get after the things that Sergeant Major of the Army and SEAC come from that world. They're small and they're able to invest, and that's how they create lethal teams. And we can do that today for all of our services. It's right in our fingertips. So I would just appreciate the help in the future with that.
Thank you. As we finish this up, if you got something on your mind, I want you to bring it up. We're going to start at the end down here. Mr. Isom.
Senator, thank you, and thanks for this entire committee. We really do appreciate the focus that you're putting on people. I will just say that we as leaders, we do have to always remember that every service is different. Each one has unique demographics and unique problems. Every basing location is different. A problem in Guam looks very different than Alaska, than Pensacola, Florida. And so a top-down solution is not always the best approach. I advocate for flexibility for the services to find solutions inside of their own services, and for local commanders out at those bases to try to find solutions, because oftentimes the local solution is much better than the top-down solution. But thanks again for all that you do, and I appreciate your service to our nation.
Thank you. Sergeant Major.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Warren, thank you. I hope today one of the things that you see from all of us here is how close we are. Services have equities. That's just how it works. We're in the people business. We're actually tight. My teammate to my left is new, but his predecessor's sitting behind me, and because Jim and I are tight and we're close. Dave Flossie's not here anymore, but we're still tight, and Dave Wolfe's here. This is who we are, and I hope that comes off today. There's nothing we deal with that's easy. I've learned that 3 years ago. But we definitely want to make sure, since you gave us the opportunity, that is one thing the committee walks away with.
Master Chief.
Chairman, Ranking Member, I appreciate the opportunity again, and very much thank you for holding the hearing. And I appreciate the heat and light you put on us in this, whether it was barracks or family housing or childcare. Because I think everybody in this room knows, left to our own devices, my building and this building will just buy me stuff, all right? It loves kits, right? I got lots of contracts for warships and airplanes and all kinds of things. And the thing that often gets the short shrift in the budget is the things that impact the quality of service of our sailors, not just their quality of life, because I think sometimes we get too narrowly focused on housing and barracks. The other place in my service specifically we take a detriment in often when budgets are tight are in the quality of the training that I give to the enlisted member, the quality of my peers, the hangars, You know, we're the richest country in the world with the strongest Navy in the world, but when you drive on our base, it is not obvious that those first two sentences are true. So I appreciate your continued partnership, and I look forward to engaging with you in the future. Thank you.
Sir, thank you for the opportunity. Just one more thing that maybe your influence or your membership in other committees. I feel like I'm also the Sergeant Major of the Marines of the past. And today, thousands of Marines exited for the last time their Marine Corps base. And so building momentum in their lives as they exit, because I won't be able to keep all of them, and really I can't, and frankly, I don't want to, is the best of the best get a seat at the table. But for those that transition, especially for the culture that we have, the ability to transition from active duty or the reserve component, whatever they're serving in, straight into a first responder type of billet, that they're not waiting 12, 18 months to go to a school, right? And that the in-between time, when the paychecks run out, when the medical gets expensive and life hits them, I worry about suicide in my service in active duty and reserve, but just as much when they exit the service. And so if I can transition them faster to those areas, shipbuilding, whatever it is. I met with the Secret Service director, build a pipeline where a Marine can go straight from the last day of active duty to your school. 21st century, eliminate the barriers, let's get after it. And in turn, the communities get a leader a lot quicker to go and be the next mayor, the next congressman, the next congresswoman, and take over the helm of America.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Ranking Member, we really do care about these issues just like you do. We really appreciate your continued advocacy. One of the things that I've noticed in just a couple of short months in this job is we do have resilience problems in a lot of areas. One area I've noticed that we don't have any resilience problems is in the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is very resilient. And as I look at the issues that have come before this committee today, there are common themes in each one of those areas where bureaucracy sometimes keeps us from delivering what our folks need. So anything that this committee can do to continue to put pressure on extra rules that aren't necessary and things that block us from being able to deliver what we need to our people, we welcome that opportunity and look forward to working with you on that and many other things in the years to come. Thank you.
Chairman, Ranking Member, thank you so much for the opportunity today to talk about, these very much important topics. Quality of life, and we kind of talked about this a little bit in quality of service, having stable and reliable budgets really will be helpful as we plan some of these things out. So help with reliable, stable funding will be helpful to get after some of the challenges that we talked about today. And the flexibility, I think SMA talked about, right, having flexibility because not, one size doesn't fit all, I think is really important. Ranking Member Warren, you talked so passionately about childcare and CDC specifically, but so much goodness and effort with all the, in childcare in the community, homes, spouses opening childcare in their homes, renting seats downtown, like I talked about they did at Peterson. Having the funds and the authority and the flexibility to get after some of these challenges in multiple ways is so helpful to kind of cut through some of the bureaucracy and actually provide impact to our service members and their families. So thank you for all the help on that. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks to all of you. This has been good, and we need this. We need more of it. I coached a football team. You can have all the equipment you want, but if you ain't got the players, you don't have a chance. And we need players. We need men and women to fight, to sign up and protect our country. It's about 6 months ago, I had a family come into my office here on Capitol Hill, career military, 5 kids, 12 years old and under. Not one of them's healthy because they were in a home for years that had mold. Yeah. Somebody should go to jail, and it probably should be us up here. If I had a magic wand, we'd take 5% and add to the NDAA every year. If it's $1 trillion, it's $50 billion that goes to barracks, food, child care, health care, whatever it takes to build the best, continue to build the best military in the world. If we don't do that, it's not going to happen. As Sergeant Major Ruiz said, we got AI coming, but that ain't gonna take the place of a soldier. Not gonna happen. We can't count on that. But we can count on you training, but you can't train unless you got people. And you can't have people unless you got families that are taken care of. It's embarrassing that we have those 5 kids that will never live the life that most of us have had a chance to live in here because of stupidity of not following up and helping a family that's put their husband or the wife has put their life on the line to serve in our military. It's just sad. So hopefully we can continue these dialogues. We hope we can help all of you. We appreciate your service and what you've done for our country. Continue to push our soldiers hard, train them hard. You never know what's down the road. I mean, we live in a dangerous world. But thanks to the families also. My God, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have it. So thanks to all of you. Thanks for what you do. And let's continue to have the best military in the world. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you.